You know the scene, it's late, the air is heavy with humidity and the muffled bass of a song you've heard 1,000 times before. Inside, there is a collective ritual, the rising volume of laughter that doesn't quite match the joke. It's the sound of society lubricating its own gears. And then there's you, watching from the periphery. In this environment, your silence feels loud. You can almost feel the unspoken question hanging in the smoke. Why aren't you drinking? Are you judging us? Are you bored? We've been told that refusing this ritual is a social glitch, that not partaking in the chemical dismantling of your senses makes you broken. But what if that silence isn't a defect? What if standing sober in the middle of chaos is actually a sign of a different operating system? Neuroscience suggests the sober brain isn't missing the party. It's simply running in high definition while everyone else is voluntarily downscaling to 240p. We need to talk about the biology of the outsider, because you're not boring, you're just operating with a different architecture. To understand why this friction exists, we have to look at the hardware. We have to look at evolution. For most of human history, survival was a numbers game. You needed the tribe, and to trust the tribe, you needed to know that everyone was on the same wavelength. When a group drinks together, they are essentially engaging in a chemical peace treaty. Alcohol lowers defenses. It mimics the effects of bonding hormones. It says, look, I am impairing my judgment. I am making myself vulnerable so you can trust me. It is a forced fusion of identities. The I becomes the we. But here is where the divergence happens. The sober mind, the one that voluntarily rejects this fusion, is often operating with a high degree of what psychologists call an internal locus of control. This is the software update most people skip. While the tribal instinct screams for external validation and chemical bonding to feel safe, the conscious, sober individual possesses a radical kind of autonomy. They don't need a substance to modulate their emotional temperature, their sense of safety, their sense of self. It doesn't come from blending into the herd. It comes from within. It's a terrifying level of independence when you think about it. To stand in a room full of people dissolving their egos into a collective blur and choose to remain solid, that's not being antisocial. That is an evolutionary flex. It's the biological capability to stand alone. Now let's look at the engine under the hood. Why does the boring label stick? Usually because the sober person isn't matching the manic energy of the room. But there is a chemical reason for that mania. Alcohol is, fundamentally, a loan shark. It lends you a burst of dopamine and serotonin in the first 20 minutes. That buzz, that warm glow. But it charges high interest. As the night goes on, the brain scrambles to rebalance the equation, leading to the depressive crash, the anxiety, the fog. The sober brain, particularly one with a highly active prefrontal cortex, that's the CEO of your brain. The part responsible for long-term planning and risk assessment sees this deal for what it is, a scam. For the conscious non-drinker, that initial buzz isn't perceived as relaxation. It's perceived as a loss of data. Think about it. Your brain spends all day processing millions of bits of information, keeping you sharp, keeping you alive. Alcohol comes in and essentially starts pulling wires out of the mainframe. For someone who values cognitive clarity, that doesn't feel like fun. It feels like a system failure. It's not that the sober person can't experience pleasure, it's that their reward system isn't wired to find pleasure in the shutdown. They find pleasure in the function. There's another layer to this, and it's about who we are when the lights go out. We live in a culture obsessed with a liquid personality. The idea that you need a drink to be your fun self, your brave self, your social self. It implies that your actual self, the one you wake up with, isn't enough. That it needs a patch to run properly socially. This creates a fragmentation, a split identity. The sober path is the refusal to fracture. When you navigate life without anesthesia, you are forced to inhabit your inner house completely. You can't sweep the anxiety under the rug of a blackout. You can't drown the insecurity in a bottle of wine. You have to look at the mess. You have to clean it up. This is why sober people often seem so grounded, maybe even a bit serious to the outside observer. They aren't engaging in the escapism because they have made their internal reality a place they don't need to escape from. It is the discipline of continuity. The person they are at 11 p.m. is the same person they are at 7 a.m. There is no lag, there is no data corruption. And this leads us to the biggest misconception of all. The idea that sobriety is gray, that it's a monochrome existence devoid of color. The reality? It's the exact opposite. The drinker seeks the blur. They want to soften the hard edges of reality because reality is sharp and sharpness can hurt. But the sober mind? The sober mind lives in 4K resolution. Psychological traits often linked to those who resist herd behavior include high openness to experience, an appreciation for art, for complexity, for deep intellectual and emotional connection. When you strip away the numbing agent, your sensory input skyrockets. Conversations aren't just noise, they are nuanced exchanges of information. The city lights aren't just blurry streaks, they are geometry and electricity. The melancholy of a rainy night isn't something to be drowned out, it's something to be felt, to be aesthetically consumed. This isn't boredom, this is intensity. The sober person isn't sitting there doing nothing, they are processing everything. They are feeling the raw texture of existence without a filter. To the numbed observer, stillness looks like emptiness. But to the conscious mind, stillness is just the canvas where the details become visible. So why the hostility? Why does the guy with the beer get so annoyed at the guy with the sparkling water? It's rarely about you, it's about the mirror. When you remain sober, you become a reflective surface. Your presence, your unslurred speech, your steady gaze, it unintentionally highlights the loss of control in others. It triggers a subconscious defense mechanism. The tribe thinks, if he isn't drinking to tolerate this reality, why do I have to? Is my reality unbearable? That is a heavy question, and rather than answer it, it's easier to project onto you. It's easier to say, you're boring, than to admit, I am dependent. Understanding this is the key to liberation. You realize that the pressure isn't a judgment on your character, it's a symptom of their friction. You are the control variable in their experiment, and that makes them nervous. Ultimately, this comes down to how you want to engage with your time on this planet. There's a difference between watching a movie and driving a car. Intoxication is a passive state. It's putting life on autopilot, letting the chemical currents drift you wherever they go. It's the path of least resistance. You are a spectator in your own body, hoping the landing won't be too rough. Conscious sobriety is the pilot's seat. It allows for the state of flow, that psychological zone where skill meets challenge. You can't enter a flow state when your processing speed is throttled by a depressant. The sober individual prefers the difficult engagement of the steering wheel over the easy comfort of the passenger seat. They invest their energy where there is reciprocity, in real conversations, in creative work, in genuine introspection, rather than pouring it into a void that gives nothing back but a headache. So if you are out there, navigating the noise in silence, listen to me. You are not broken, you are not less than. You have simply calibrated your machine for a different purpose. In a world addicted to numbness, feeling everything is a radical act. In a world terrified of the self, staying present in your own mind is the ultimate rebellion. You aren't missing the party. You're just the only one who's going to remember it in full resolution. You are playing the game on hard mode, and the stats are in your favor. Don't apologize for the clarity. This exploration is far from over. There are deeper layers of the human mind we still need to decode, other signals in the noise that need our attention. If you want to continue navigating these liminal spaces with me, make sure you're subscribed. We'll find the next frequency together. Until then, keep the signal clear.